I was raised in Minnesota, and a little house in the prairie. There is a Walnut Grove, Minnesota. That's where I went to school, grew up, farm kid. And mom, dad, sister, brother, typical poor family, but we didn't know we were poor because, you know, depression, but everybody had a lot of food because we were farmers. Dad was an entrepreneur. I got my take a little bit of a chance mentality from him. My mom was a negotiator. I went to her if I wanted something, and she went to my dad, and I learned negotiating skills there. I had a brother who served in Korea. All four of my brothers-in-law were World War II guys. One was killed. So those were my heroes, family, and good role models for me.
19-year-old Leo Thorsness enlisted in the Air Force in 1952. Though he enlisted during the Korean War, he would receive his wings and commission when the war was coming to a close. Thorsness would serve for over a decade in a peacetime Air Force until 1966, when Vietnam became his war. He was flying a modified F-105 as part of a group known as the Wild Weasels.
I was in a thing called Wild Weasels. Air Force has got to have a code name for everything, military does. Wild Weasels. Vietnam was the first time there was surface-to-air missiles that could shoot down airplanes. And our job was to find and kill SAM sites, surface-to-air missile sites.
On April 19, 1967, Thorsness was leading 4 planes on a mission over North Vietnam, deep within enemy territory.
It was pretty much of a typical Weasel mission. Like, there'd be 4 airplanes that go in first. I, as the leader, I'd always split my flight of 4 into 2 elements. We'd cover north and south of the target, or east or west, we said. And we'd try to give them twice as much pleasure, the SAM guys, the guys on the ground shooting at us. We had destroyed one SAM site, we rolled in another one, and my wingman got hit. And I, told him to head for the mountains, and we were over the flatland south of Hanoi. To get close enough, maybe in the mountains, you could have a chance to rescue. He got in the foothills and the airplane quit, and both he and his wingmen ejected. I could hear the beepers. I homed in on the beepers. You got an automatic direction finder, so I could find them. And about the time I picked up their chutes, a MiG was rolling in on one of them. So I rolled in the MiG, and he and I got into it, and I ended up shooting that MiG down.
Because his aircraft was low on fuel, Thorsness was forced to depart the area in search of a tanker. Upon being advised that 2 World War II rescue planes, known as Sandys, were orbiting near the downed cruise position, and that there were hostile MiGs in the area posing a serious threat, Thorsness quickly refueled and returned to help.
So we come back in, and I'm headed back towards that shoot-down site, that area. And Sandy 2, which is their call sign, says, Sandy 1's going in, Sandy 1's going in, the MiG's got him, he's going in, he just hit the mountain. And so he said, help, in essence. Not believing it would work, but I said, Sandy 2, you turn that airplane as hard as you can, right on the deck, it's slow down as slow as you can get, they'll never stay with you. And I'll come in, I'll run through you and I'll pick them up. And we did that, and somehow the guy survived, and we ran through them, and all the MiGs jumped on me, he got out. A 105 couldn't turn hard for long because it was a heavy airplane with little bitty wings, but it sure could go fast, 800 knots. And we outran these MiGs right on the deck, and it's going supersonic at 20 feet, with the rice fields. That's exciting in itself. I'm headed out, my backseat and Harry and I are headed for a tanker over Laos, and in about 10 minutes, I get this radio call that you never hear in combat over enemy territory. You always use call signs. Cadillac 1, this is green. He said, Leo. Well, that gets your attention.
When it became apparent that an aircraft in the area was critically low on fuel, and that the crew would have to bail out unless it could reach a tanker, Thorsness, low on fuel himself, gave up his chance to refuel and headed instead toward a forward base.
My backseat and I thought, we weren't sure about when we gave our tanker up, we thought we could make it to Thailand and eject, the Mekong River. Laos, bad country, Thailand, good country. And so we climbed to 35,000 feet, and when we hit 70 miles from the river, you could glide 2 miles per 1,000 feet in that old airplane. Pulled it back to idle, indicating 0 fuel, and not only did we make the river, we made Udorn, which is 8 miles past it, and we ran out of fuel as we got it hit the ground. 11 days after I flew that mission, which I finally received the Medal of Honor for, I was shot down. 100 missions was a full tour, and I was shot down on my 93rd mission. So we were so badly hit. We knew we were out of business. I put my helmet against the side of the canopy, had a visor. I couldn't see out, the smoke was so thick, and the stick was just flopped. The rudders were gone, the engine, everything was gone, and we knew instantly we were out. So, and we hadn't been 2 seconds since we were hit, I guess. So we were ejected about 600 knots. But I looked down, and clearly I could see muzzle flashes, rifles. It's hard to hide in a parachute. That's really hard. We were probably a mile apart, Harry and I. We were both captured. It's a tribal area. These people have never seen electricity. They've seen it, but they don't have it. We went from absolute high-tech to abject no-tech. I mean, it was just surreal, but it was happening. They got us to the edge of the foothills, and we stayed there that day, and they interrogated Harry and I separately in a pig pen, literally pig pens. And they take you out and beat you, and I was able to stick with my name, rank, still on my date of birth, so was Harry. And then that night a truck came, and they took Harry first about dusk and into Hanoi, and 18 days and nights of torture at the Hanoi Hilton. It was a very brutal time, and it was very difficult the first time I broke and went past name rank, still on date of birth, because I thought I was the weakest man. It was the worst day of my life. Worse than being shot down is when I broke, because I thought, I bet nobody else did. I had about a year of solitary. It was just not untypical, that was pretty routine. But when I got in with the other guys, I found out they too had broken. And then with the tap code, I found out everybody that survived eventually went past name rank, and that was very comforting. Not that made me strong, but it made them more equal in my eyes. And I found out I wasn't the worst guy, I wasn't the weakest guy. You know, you get into the prison system and you work your way through it. 3 years were brutal, 3 years were boring. It took a lot of adjusting to get used to that routine of not having your freedom, and that's why freedom turned out to be, no doubt, the most precious commodity we have. But with the tap code, prison tap code, I got a message, said, Leo, did you know that you had been submitted for the Medal of Honor? And I didn't. And so when I came home, a total of 6 years after the action or so, a little over that, I received a Medal of Honor. It's hard for me to convey how important freedom is, and I didn't appreciate it, and I don't know that anyone can until they've lost it. It doesn't happen automatically. It's got to be re-earned by every generation, or at least every other generation. If you let it slip very long, it's gone. I think most feel we're just temporary guardians of the Medal of Honor. We happened to be the guy that was recognized, and it could have been one of many people that did as much or more. They weren't recognized, they were killed, there was nobody who witnessed it. We happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think we wear it for all veterans. And really, I think we wear it for any American, civilian or military, that does the job they're assigned, no matter what it is, the best they can do it, and they're responsible. I think that's what makes the country.
Mr. President, I'm speaking tomorrow at an Air Force ROTC commissioning ceremony at the University of Arkansas. As I've been preparing my remarks, I've been thinking a lot about airmen who left more than contrails behind them, the men and women who served with such distinction that we still remember them to this day, those great Americans, the heroes of the sky. And the first name that came to mind, the name that resounded louder than almost any other, was the great Leo Thorsness. So you can imagine how saddened I was to hear of his passing last week. Whenever you hear such a legend has left the earth, it's like a sudden crack of thunder in the dead of night. It wakes you up, it sobers you, it reminds you of what we've lost. Because Leo Thorsness was an American classic. Born in Walnut Grove, Minnesota, his childhood sounds as idyllic as his hometown. He joined the Boy Scouts and later rose to become an Eagle Scout. He met his wife, Gay Lee, in the freshman registration line at South Dakota State College. They married 3 years later and had one daughter, Dawn. He joined the Air Force, went to flying school, and became a pilot. Soon, he was a fighter pilot in both the Strategic and Tactical Air Command. Looking back on his life, you can see Leo Thorsness was part of an era. Those burly, self-confident, middle-class families who, after a Great Depression and the greatest of wars, put down roots and built the booming America of the mid to late 20th century. But of course, Leo Thorsness was not simply a part of his generation, he inspired it with his courage and self-sacrifice. For many Americans, the only number they remember from the Vietnam years is their draft number. But for Leo Thorsness, there are two numbers that stick out, 88 and 93. It was on his 88th mission for the Air Force that he performed the noble deeds for which he would later receive the Medal of Honor. He was flying an F-105 Thunder Chief with his weapons specialist, Harold Johnson. They were escorting fighter bombers targeting a North Vietnamese Army barracks. They shot down a MiG, roughed up another, and hit 2 missile batteries. They were low on ammo and fuel, but they fought on. He continued to scare off MiGs and instructed a tanker plane to refuel another fighter. When he finally landed 70 miles south in Thailand, the fuel tank was on empty. It was a stunning act of bravery. It was on his 93rd mission, just 7 shy of completing his tour of duty, that Leo Thorsness was shot down. He was captured and spent 6 years in the Hanoi Hilton, 6 years in the darkness. It was there that he met his cellmate, our colleague and future Senator John McCain. Imagining 6 days in such a terrible place is more than most people could handle, never mind 6 years. But Leo Thorsness endured. He saw the mission through, and when he returned in 1973, it was to an astonished and grateful nation. But the man himself was unfazed. He called his wife after being released and said gaily, "I would have called sooner, but I've been all tied up." He later went on to serve in the Washington State Senate and run for other offices. But his legacy is not one of the titles he won, it's the example he set. He was quite a man, Leo Thorsness, and though we've lost him, we'll keep his memory for a good long time to come. Leo Thorsness, rest in peace. Mr. President, I yield the floor. I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
This is an Air Force Report. I'm Staff Sergeant Chris Stacker. As the Air Force celebrates its 60th anniversary, Ramstein Air Base in Germany was visited by an important member of the service's heritage. Airman First Class Mara Teitel has more.
Music, fun, and games. Things most Americans appreciate, but even more so when one's basic freedoms have been taken away. Fighter pilot Colonel Leo Thorsness learned this the hard way when his plane was shot down in Vietnam, making him a POW for 6 years.
The longer we lived there, the more red, white, and blue, more patriotic we became, because for 6 years we looked at communism right from its bowels. It's a terrible system. Any autocratic system is, where people don't have some rights. So we came home very proud to be Americans, more so than we left.
Airman First Class Mara Teitel, Ramstein Air Base, Germany.
Medal of Honor veterans visited 1st Brigade soldiers at Forward Operating Base Stagger to meet and talk to troops. The only Medal of Honor winner to come out of the war in Iraq was Sergeant First Class Paul Smith with 1st Brigade during Operation Iraqi Freedom 1.
Congressional Medal of Honor awardees are 6,000 miles away in Iraq eating dinner with us at the Brigade Combat Team. The same Brigade Combat Team that Sergeant Smith was assigned to 2 years ago when he earned the Congressional Medal of Honor.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm proud of you guys. It makes me proud to be an American to see all you fine fellows out here.
There were veterans from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. After they arrived at Bob Dagger, they went to the dining facility to eat and talk casually with some of the soldiers.
It was actually an honor. I mean, getting to meet someone with such high stature in the military and learning their background and what they did for our country and being in a combat situation, it was actually pretty interesting.
Later, there was an assembly in the conference room where soldiers could listen to stories and words of advice from these war heroes. The Medal of Honor veterans commented on what it meant to them to be in Iraq with today's service members.
I've never been so encouraged to be with sharp, bright, young, motivated, doing 2 jobs, killing folks they have to and building a government or infrastructure. It's just phenomenal how you people know what you're doing, and you believe in it, and you're treated, respected like you ought to have been, for every military should be.
The caliber of the people that we've met here, we can't thank them enough for the job that they're doing. It's just been incredible and very, very heartwarming for us to see that type of individual and still representing our country and keeping us safe at home.
These Medal of Honor recipients have 2 more days left of their 11-day tour through the Middle East that they say has been the best time they have had in years. Reporting from Fob Dagger, Iraq, I'm Specialist James Green.